Usually I decide what to sketch just based on what I get excited about that day. I'll really want to draw it. It feels like the ultimate homage to the species. My name's Hashveenah Manoharan, and I am an artist, and my day job is working as a biologist and an arborist for an environmental consulting firm. The art I make, I think, is really heavily influenced by the work I do in the field. I would draw the birds that I saw and the plants that I saw. At first, it was a way for me to learn how to identify them. Currently, I think it's entirely an exercise in attentiveness to nature. I put a lot of intention into what I put down, which forces me to focus and think about what I'm doing, and it's a wonderful way of slowing yourself down. A lot of these species have really minute details that are hard for me to retain. Frankly, I have a bad memory, and I think that's the core of it all. It became a way to study and focus and appreciate the minutia of what I was seeing every day. And then it became a way to celebrate, and then it became a way to experience joy, and it's just a beautiful cycle. We have Virginia spring beauty, which is also a pretty common spring ephemeral in Ontario. Last year. Oh, there we go. You can see the leaves on this one are nice and long compared to the Carolina Spring Beauty, which will be more rounded and stout. Oh my God, they're so pretty. They're one of my favorites in the spring. Okay, I think the birdwalk we want is here. Trying not to look at the camera. I was very nature blind until I was almost 18, and I somehow got a job at a nature center. It was a complete fluke, and it completely changed my life. I was living in a really urban area, and suddenly it was my job to teach little kids about nature. So I would sit on the subway, and I would get to work 2 hours early every morning with my little field guide, and I would try to identify everything around me. And being around people who could do that without looking at a book was really inspiring and mind-blowing, and it made me open my eyes quite a bit to everything that's around us. In southwestern Ontario, we live in the most biodiverse part of this entire country. So there's so much to explore here, and it's just an endless learning opportunity. And I really like to revel in that and know that I never know everything fully. Oh my God, don't look at it, holy crap. There's the red-winged blackbirds scaring off the songbirds. There's that damn goose. I always get to feed birds here. There's too many bullies. I'm constantly being distracted by shiny new mediums. So last year I focused a lot on watercolor, and this year I'm hoping to focus more on oil. The two species groups outside of botany that appeal to me the most are definitely snails and snakes. it was a species that I was raised to be afraid of and not respect. And then I got into this field job and they were like, you're gonna spend your summer tracking down snakes and you're gonna hold them and you're gonna like it. And I held them and I loved it. What's going on, Juju? Is this the outside world? Is there life beyond your enclosure? It just felt like such an upheaval of how I was raised to look at nature, and then it turned into me realizing that I can reform the way that I approach nature and not be scared of it. I'm most proud of a painting I did called Slow Walk, and I did it as an artist in residence at Point Pelee National Park. The painting I did had over 50 different species that we observed in our time in the park, and they were flowering plants and trees and snakes and skinks and all sorts of ridiculous, amazing, beautiful stuff. And I did it all in the form of a snail. And I wanted to make the smallest thing you can find in the park the biggest focal point. And I wanted to communicate that we should care about that small thing. When I first started sketching in my journal, a lot of the texts that accompanied those sketches were very technical. And then I listened to an interview where Mary Oliver said that paying attention without feeling is just a report. And then I looked at my journal and I was like, this is just a report. It didn't feel like artwork necessarily, like with that key element of creativity. And then very quickly it changed from statistics to poetry. A friend of mine, Emily, introduced me to her, and I have been reading her collected works. I find her poetry so comforting, and it's like aspirational how much I want to have a perspective like hers. If you work in the field of conservation, you are constantly bombarded with bad news. It's not a super inherently hopeful place to work or industry to work in, because it is the process of putting band-aids on very, very big wounds. Mary Oliver's approach to nature is to be joyful with full understanding of the facts, and despite the facts, and in addition to the facts. So I don't think it's an exercise in ignoring what has been done to our natural environment, but it's more like a muscle that you develop, that in spite of everything that's happened, you can still experience joy and attention and appreciation. And you can hold that in your heart as the way you perceive everything. It's so hard to be sad when you're like that, when you can still see hope and joy. I got so much satisfaction from being able to translate like a weird connection I made in my brain into something on paper. I would be completely fulfilled if someone saw my journal and felt some kind of inclination to do something similar based on their own life and their own observations. I think my entire artistic practice is just showing the level of attention you can pay to the natural world. I think that's the key piece to completely changing the mindset of urban populations into ones that have an ethic of conservation, a responsibility to nature and the environment, and a sense of care that will eventually move you to behave in more environmentally friendly ways. That's like, if I could do that for one person, I would be very thrilled. She is the main character. She's always sabotaging my work, sitting on my laptop. Are you done?